Welcome everyone! Today we'll learn how to install PrimeNG and use root guards in Angular. So go to VS Code and create a new Angular application. Open a new terminal and using the Angular CLI we'll type ngn, define the Angular project name. I will inline styles, skip test and select the defaults for simplicity. Run the command, open the containing folder, open a new terminal and install PrimeNG. So go to the official documentation. Run this command to install the CSS framework, execute it, go back and add the styles, copy these two import lines and go to the global style CSS, paste the lines, go back. We'll install PrimeFlex, which is a CSS utility library for PrimeNG to use some Prime UI plots. So copy this command, run in terminal and add the styles line. Finally, we'll install the Prime icons. So download the icons, run this command in the terminal, go back and add the corresponding CSS line, save it. We successfully installed PrimeNG. Now go to the roots configuration file from this Angular application and let's start defining two roots. If you want to learn about Angular routing and navigation, I'll provide a video link in the description below. So define the path for the first root called analytics and the corresponding component called analytics component, and add a second root which will be a default root with an empty path to display a home component which will contain the sample Angular HTML code. So I will open a new terminal, navigate to the add folder and create these two components using the Angular CLI. The components are created. So go back to PrimeNG and in the installation documentation link, go to the Prime blot section and we'll use some Angular UI blocks. So click on the free blocks. For the first analytic component, let's scroll down and we'll copy this sample HTML from the page heading UI block. So copy the code, go back and navigate to the analytics template, paste the code, go to the TypeScript file to add the button module from PrimeNG, save it. And for the home component, we'll go to the add main template and copy the sample Angular code. Go to the home template and paste the code. We'll keep the route outlet directed in the main add component to render a component based on the current root. Let's save it and add the missing imports in the root configuration file. In the first terminal, I will set the application. We have an error in the home component because the title is not present. Remove this interpolation and save it. Navigate to the Angular URL application. This is the default HTML code from Angular. Navigate to the analytics root. We're displaying this PrimeNG UI block. For the analytics root, we'll use the CanActivate root guard that controls navigation to a root. We'll verify that the user is a manager to activate this analytics component to navigate to this root. So add the CanActivate guard. And for Angular root guards, we can define it as functions, which was introduced in Angular version 14. And we'll add the dependencies using the inject function. So define a function and call the inject function to add a new dependencies. So create a new service called auth. Go to this auth service and create a new property called user. Let's define it as manager. Go back and we'll inject this auth service and we'll check if the user is manager. The root guards can return a Boolean expression or can return a root URL tree. So add a or condition. If the user is not a manager, we'll inject the route service to navigate to a new root URL tree. So with the past URL, we'll create a new URL tree with an empty path to navigate to the default home component. So let's save it and test it. Go back to the Angular application and with the CanActivate guard, we're displaying this analytics component. So now in the auth service, let's change the user as standard. Let's save it and we're redirecting to the default component using the second condition in this CanActivate guard. Now create a new root with the account path and we'll add some child roots to use the second GAT, which is the CanActivateChild, that controls navigation to child roots to a root. So the root is a count, and we'll add the children array to define two roots. The first one will be the login root, and we'll render a component called login component and add a second root called pricing. Add the corresponding components in the terminal. Let's give the command to create the components. Go back to the PrimeUI plots, scroll down, and you will see this sign-in template. So copy the HTML code, navigate to the login template, paste the code, and add the corresponding PrimeNG modules that we need, the button module and the chatbots module. So go to the TypeScript file and add these imports. Let's save it. Go back to the UI plots and scroll up. You will see this pricing UI block. So copy the HTML, navigate to the template, paste it, and add the button module in this standalone component. Go to the roots and add the missing imports. Add the root GAT called CanActivateChild to control navigation to these child roots. We'll create a new function and we'll inject the auth service. We'll activate these child roots if the user is not authenticated. So define a new isAuthenticated Boolean property in the auth service. Add this property and let's define as false to render to display these child roots. Let's add the condition. Otherwise, we'll create a new root URL tree to navigate to the default tree. If the user is already authenticated, let's save it. Go back to the Angular application and navigate to the account pricing root. As you will see, the pricing component is activated, which is a child root. Now go to the second child root, which is the login root. So far, so good. Let's display this input test with the PrimeNG CSS framework. So for that, go to the login component TypeScript file and import the input test module from PrimeNG. Save it. Navigate to the login. Much better. Now change in the auth service that we're already authenticated. Save it, and we navigate to the default root. Let's test with the pricing child root. So far, so good. So go back to the root configuration file and add a new root. We'll create a new component to display a form. Create a component called description form component and define a path. Description, created this component in the terminal. Add the import to this component. Go back to the PrimeUI plots and we'll copy this description list template to simulate that we're editing this movie data. So go back and go to the template, paste the code, add the button and the cheat modules in the TypeScript file, go back to the roots, and the third root GAT that will look is the CanDeactivate GAT that controls navigation away from a root. So we'll display a confirm dialog to verify whether the user wants to leave the page or continue editing the form. So add the CanDeactivate root GAT, define it as a function, and for this function we'll add a parameter which will be the component description form, and we'll return the result from the confirm dialog. So let's create this exit function in the component. So go to the component and add a host listener for the window before unload event, and for this event we'll create the handler function, which will be the exit function, and here I will return the confirm function to display a dialog with the default message, and based on the response for the user will return a Boolean value. Let's save it. Go back to the Angular application and navigate to the description root. So we have the movie information. Let's click somewhere. Let's simulate that we're editing the movie information and try to leave the page. You'll see the confirmation dialog is displayed with a default message. So let's cancel. We want to continue editing this movie information. So cancel and click again and click leave. So we're using the CanDeactivate to control the navigation away from this description component. go back. Finally, add two more components with the same path, which will be dashboard. And from the dashboard root, for the first one, we'll display a dashboard component. And we also have an admin dashboard component. So we'll use the final root guard, which is the CanMatch, that determines whether a root should be matched in the first place. So we'll check if the user is standard, we'll display this dashboard component, or if the user is admin, we'll display the admin dashboard component. So create the two components in the terminal. Now go to the PrimeUI blocks and scroll up. For the dashboard, for the standard user, we'll copy this feature template. So copy the HTML and go to the dashboard template, paste the code, go back. And for the admin dashboard, let's scroll down and we'll display some statistics. Copy the HTML and go to the admin dashboard template, paste it. Let's import the missing components in this root configuration file and add the CanMatch root guard. So let's define it as functional root guard, inject the auth service, and we'll verify if the user is standard. We'll display this dashboard component at the CanMatch root guard in the second root with the same path. When the user is admin, we'll render this admin dashboard component. Let's save it and go to the Angular application. Navigate to the dashboard root. As you will see, the user is standard, so we'll display this standard dashboard. Go back and change the user as admin. Let's save it. As you will see, the new component, the admin component, is rendered in the same root. So in this demo, we learned how to install PrimeNG and use root guards in Angular.